actually just the hands-free that comes with your Apple phone, and it has this little microphone on it here, which you can hear is actually extremely effective. So this is the mic I use, and I will talk a bit about an equipment in a minute, so we'll get back to that. So for now, first of all, here's what you'll learn: topic, format, and schedule. Then we'll have a look at the sound and editing, then hosting and your RSS feed, title and artwork, your intro and outro, and finally reviews and subscribers. So first of all, I want to say that it really is a very fluid and interactive membership group, although I have 2 or 3 topics kind of, designed for you each, or lessons rather, or one more intense long lesson for you each month. I am also really, really happy to just take requests. If there's a topic that's like everyone in the group's going, I really want to learn about this, then we can just do little ad hoc lives, because I was thinking we'd have calls, like just group calls for this, and there doesn't seem to be a need. We seem to be keeping on top of everything in the group. But if you think calls would be a good idea, let me know. But I actually think probably having some kind of lives just spontaneously when there's a question that comes up like this is probably actually going to be more useful for you than having to actually be at a certain place at a certain time. So let's get started. Topic, format, and schedule. So when you start a podcast, the first thing you need to think about is what is your topic, your format, and your schedule. So the topic is meaning like my podcast is on postpartum, and probably yours are going to be on postpartum too. But I don't know if you want to get any more niche than that, more specific than that. You might have a particular angle, or maybe you might even be broader than that. Yours might be about becoming a mother and birth included in that journey and that sort of thing. So just have a little think about what it's all about. The format can be as simple or as complicated as you want. I try to keep mine to half an hour because I always like short content for mums. Ashley was just saying my book was very short, and she was a bit disappointed at first, but intentionally it is very short. All of my blog posts are short. You'll notice even my course is fairly short. I could put a lot more required reading and literature reviews and essays and handing in homework and all of that. But I actually just believe in that if you have a really clear message, then the most important thing you can do is say it in as few words as possible. And so it was something I learned from my Communications 101 teacher back at university, and she taught me the KISS, keep it simple, stupid, which doesn't actually mean keep it simple, stupid. It means keep it short and simple. But she used to like saying keep it simple, stupid, because you want to make sure that people of all ages, demographics, you just want to make sure that your work is really accessible, and that you're not getting too much into jargon and intellect and that kind of thing. So that's a little bit of an aside. But let me know if, why can't I see the comments? Maybe I haven't got enough room. But I do try and keep my podcast to half an hour. Hang on, I'm just going to see if I can see your comments. Oh, I think I can, but only just for some reason. Hi, everyone. Hi, Joe. Hi, Alexis. Hi, Ashley. Hi, Anne. Yes, there are a few comments. So yes, I agree with this message. Otherwise, it gets too overwhelming. Yeah. You might decide you actually want to have a long format podcast, and that's fine too, because I also actually really love some podcasts that are very long. Like some of my favorite podcasts have been series where there's like 8 one-hour episodes that go really, really in depth, all into the same story. So you can choose to do that as well. There's nothing wrong with either way, but that's just my approach. So choose your topic, choose your format. The other thing about format is mine are nearly all interviews. I actually started out doing a few where it was just me talking, but I decided if it's just me talking, I'd rather just write a blog post, because I actually quite like writing. But my podcast is really an opportunity for me to invite on special guests, rich and famous people, and also have you guys on too. I've interviewed quite a lot of people in the Newborn Mothers Collective group about your own kind of areas of expertise and your own experience as postpartum professionals and that sort of thing. So mine is going to be all interviews from now on. You could also do something like, one of my favorite podcasts is called The First 40 Miles, and it is a hiking podcast because I really love hiking. And they have a very, very strict format. Every single episode, they're almost all the same length, like half an hour. They do a lot of editing, and they start out with the top 5. They have something called the Summit Gear Review. They have a quote of the day. I think they have one more thing, and I can't remember what it is right now. But the point is, they have a very strict format that they follow each time. So you could do that as well. Mine are very much just flowing interviews with very little editing. Or you can have something very structured. Even if you have interviews, you could have set questions that you like ask everyone the same thing or something. And then finally, your schedule. So it is good to be regular. I'm not really regular with my schedule. I am a bit ad hoc. I try to release a podcast probably every other Tuesday, but sometimes, well, actually they go live on Friday, but we send it out by email on Tuesday. I always send something out on Tuesdays, but it's not always a podcast. So sometimes it's weekly, sometimes it's fortnightly, sometimes it's even a bit less. I think this month we're actually probably not going to, we might even go a whole month without putting out a podcast. So that's not very good. Don't do what I do. Try and have a schedule and stick to it, because people really like it. And I know I do as a listener, knowing that, yes, on Tuesday I'm going to get a new episode. I'd also love to know what podcasts you like, because I think that really gives you a lot of help when you're choosing your topic, your format, and your schedule, is to have a think about whether you like ones that are more polished and edited, whether you like ones that have a more more structure, or ones that are interviews, or what different topics you could cover and that kind of thing. So only you know what is going to work for you. The next thing I want to talk about is sound and editing. So I have lots of fancy mics. I have this, and I never use it because it's really, really annoying and hard to use. I also have this, which I actually do recommend. It's the Rode is the brand, RODE lapel mic. So you can see this is what I usually use in my videos, because it doesn't have headphones. So if I don't want to have headphones in, then I can just pin this onto my shirt. So you probably see me using that sometimes too. So I do really like the little Rode lapel mics. They're about $60. But most of all, because the sound quality is fine, and because it's really free and easy to use, I use this my Apple hands-free. Also with my podcast, because it is conversational, then I don't want my sound quality to be really, really good. And then sometimes I'm interviewing someone on the other side of the world who doesn't have a microphone and their internet's a bit shitty. And it just actually makes it sound a lot worse, like if there's too much of a difference between us. So I try to make mine a little bit more organic sounding as well, so that, that it doesn't make theirs look really bad, their sound quality look really bad. But I always ask my people I'm interviewing if they've got something like this to use, some kind of headset. And like I said, this is just the one that comes free if you have an iPhone. I think you can buy them as well. I don't know how much they are, but anything like that is really easy. Yes, Ashley loves free-flowing conversational. Amy loves interviews that are free-flowing, and they are twins in every way. And Ebony says, I bought the Yeti from your recommendation. I'm sorry, Ebony. I used to use it. It is a really good mic. If you can figure out how to use it, Ebony, use it. But I just found there were too many buttons that I didn't really know what they did. Buttons here, buttons there, so many buttons there, things you can plug in. I'm just not a sound engineer, and I didn't understand it. So if it works for you, that's great. But what I was finding is it was never syncing with my computer. I would plug it in. This, I just plug it in and start talking, and probably because it's Apple, so that works. Whereas the Apple does notoriously have problems working with other kinds of hardware. So that might be all it is. But my computer doesn't recognize it, and I constantly have to be reminding it to find the microphone and things like that. It's very annoying. But Ebony, I'm curious if you've actually used it. Yeah, it's a bit complex. Because if it is working for you, it's a great microphone. It's a much better microphone than this one. But I just found it was taking me too long to get set up. And you know what it's like with kids? Sometimes I'm like, great, I've got half an hour. I've just got to get this thing done. And if you spend half an hour trying to, fluff around with, like, I don't know even what these things are called, but like the gain and the pattern, all of that kind of stuff, then, you don't actually have time to actually record a podcast. Now, the other thing to know about sound is much, much, much more important than your microphone or anything else to do with your sound quality is actually having a contained space. If you have a walk-in wardrobe, that's an awesome place to record your podcast. You want something that's fabric and soft and small. So recording studios, you know, they have all like eggshell and foam and things like that. Some people do makeshift little tents made of mattresses, you know, if you just put 2 mattresses over your head, so you're talking like that. What I use if I do want better quality sound, which usually, like I said, if I'm interviewing someone, I don't want my sound to be too good because it makes their sound bad. But if I'm interviewing, if I'm doing something like recording an audio lesson, for example, like then, because I do have a few of those kind of like standalone things that I want to be better quality, then I actually put my head in a box. And I can't find my box right now. Oh, yes, it's there. I just remembered where it was. Hold on. Shirley says you probably need an audio interface to get a mic syncing well. Yes, but you only really need a headset. Yes, I did use from recording from recording my e-course. It wasn't bad. Good. Yeah, if you get it working, it's great. It's just that I just found it too fiddly, and I'm a very lazy person. I always want shortcuts, so that's just me. But if you want really good sound quality, then you can get a better mic, obviously. And the Blue Yeti is a great mic, but also really good is the Rode. It's a lapel mic, but they don't call it a lapel mic. What's the other name for a lapel mic? Lavalier or something. High-tech box. Oh yes, you're going to love this high-tech box. So this box is one of those IKEA ones with the zip at the bottom. So it fold. That's why I couldn't find it, because I folded it flat and tucked it behind something. So the brand is called, hang on, it's called Drona. I don't know if anyone has those Expedit bookshelves at home that they have, like, it's like a bookshelf from IKEA that has the boxes. They're all the squares. And then you can buy all these different kinds of, you can either leave them open like a bookshelf, or you can buy these kinds of boxes to put in them. So we have a stack of these for toys, and this is one that the kids sat on and ruined. So it's not really held its shape very well. You can see it's not really square anymore. So I use it for my podcasting. So you can see, I'm curious to see if you can hear the difference. I can already hear the difference. Hello. Yes. So if you stick your head in a box, then that dampens the sound. So what you're trying to do is reduce the echo. Now, you obviously can't do this on a video because you would look really, really stupid. But if you can, I actually put my computer in it. It's the right size for my laptop. So I can actually put my computer in it and then just stick my head quite close to the screen with this on, and so I can read off my notes, and I've got that nice little thing. So what you're preventing is the echo. So in my office right now, I'll just show you around. It's a fairly small office. Oh, you can't really see very well. Oh, look at my poster, by the way. There's my poster of my book. It's a fairly small room, but it's sorry, I think that's going to stuff up the sound, so I'm not going to show you around. It's a fairly small room, but the walls are quite bare. Are you guys still there? Can you hear me? Ebony says, I feel for the person who comes in now to start watching. They're like, why has Julia got her head in a box? Yeah, it makes a big difference, doesn't it, Amy? So I'm in a fairly small room right now, but the walls are quite bare and it's quite hard. So it is quite echoey. One thing I'm actually working on at the moment, you know, those craft projects that take years and years when really it should just take a week, is actually a pom-pom wall hanging that I'm going to stick up on this wall behind me to absorb sound. So if you wanted to record in your office, you can put up things like tapestries or weavings or any kind of fabric wall hangings, because that will improve the sound quality by having the fabric. So anything that's fabric, anything that's soft and absorbs the sound rather than echoes the sound is what makes the difference. And that's why these boxes are so easy, because it just makes the difference like that. So there you go. That's how you get good sound quality. Now, editing I would suggest you just edit with whatever you've got on your computer. So I edit in something called ScreenFlow, I think, because that's what I use for my videos. You can edit even in QuickTime. You can edit in GarageBand. If you have just look on your computer already and see what you've got, because most computers will come with some kind of free editing software. You can even use video editing software, and then you just export it only as a sound file. So use whatever you've got and whatever you're familiar with. You don't need to buy anything fancy. You also don't need to edit. 99% of the time I don't edit my podcast unless there's something that goes wrong, like one of us, is interrupted by a dog or a child, or maybe if one of us has a coughing fit, or even if someone says something and then it's like, oh, no, that's not really how I meant it, then we'll just say, okay, don't worry, just say that again and I'll edit it out later. If you do that, what you can do is when you're recording your podcast is you go like this. And then when you're looking at the file, it's easy to find where there's a big sound spike. So you've got a visual cue of like, oh, that was where I needed to go back and edit. So if you are recording and you make a mistake, just go like that. And then it makes it much easier to edit that mistake out later. So that is sound and editing. Let me know if you have any more questions. Joe says, I've just recorded the first episode of my podcast today on Anchor FM. Yoo-hoo! It's pretty easy to use and you can record and edit on your phone and laptop. That's awesome, Joe. So can you tell me, is Anchor FM, is that the hosting and RSS, or is it more like a recording and editing software? I'm going to do a quick Google. Create, distribute, host. So it does everything. So it's like an all-in-one podcasting. Create and host unlimited podcasts, distribute your show everywhere, and make money all in one place and all for free. I'm glad you mentioned that, Joe. It's really good that you're here because that sounds awesome. Yep. That sounds really great. Yes, Ashley says, I'm just using the audio from my video interview series and go and roll it out on a podcast later. Perfect. You can actually host a podcast, Ashley, on YouTube these days. So that makes sense if you've already got your videos there anyway. And YouTube is actually the biggest listening platform in the world right now, bigger than Spotify or anything. People listen to more music on YouTube than anywhere else, which is pretty crazy. So although it's not that well known for podcasting yet, it's definitely well known for audio in general. Oh, what's beeping? Damn it, it's my phone. Sorry, guys, I'll deal with that later. Yes, Anchor, awesome. So yeah, Anchor I had never heard of, but I will be recommending it because luckily the next topic is hosting and your RSS feed. So hosting means you need to have somewhere on the internet that hosts your audio files. So that's like, where do those actual, like the actual data, the actual sound files, where do they live out in the World Wide Web? So I just have mine hosted on my website. I know that's actually not the best thing, but Squarespace has inbuilt hosting and RSS. So for me, that was just like the quickest way to get off the ground. But if you do end up with a lot of visitors, then it can be quite slow to download, apparently, if it's on your website. But often these things, they say that, but until you have like thousands of downloads, it's not going to be a problem anyway. So I wouldn't let it become a barrier to getting started. You can always change your hosting later. So Anchor FM is another hosting platform that Joe's just mentioned, which is actually free. So that's really cool. Another, the most common probably hosting platform is called Libsyn, Libsyn. Another one is called Blubrry, Blubrry, and they're like $5, $10, $15 a month to host. But then Anchor is free. So I don't know why everyone's not using that. Actually says, I didn't know you could host a podcast on YouTube. I know, it's pretty cool. It's not hosting on YouTube, so it's distributing to YouTube. So you've got two things. Hosting is where the file actually lives, and then you've got the RSS, which is your, what does RSS stand for? Rich Site Summary. Rich Site Summary. So RSS is like then sends the data from your podcast out to the platforms where people actually listen. So that sends it out to iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube or whatever else. So you need both things. You need the hosting and you need the RSS feed. But whatever you figure out as you're hosting, then it will give you instructions for how to set up the RSS. Yes, so Ashley says, how do you get your podcast into apps like the Apple Podcast exactly? Is that because it's hosted on iTunes? No, so it's hosted on my website, but we've set up RSS feeds to Stitcher and iTunes because they were the biggest two. They still are the biggest two, I think, but they were definitely the biggest two when I launched. So we thought we'd just start with them. There's also SoundCloud, YouTube, Spotify is getting really popular for podcasts as well. So once you choose your host, then you will provide, basically your RSS is like you provide the feed so that it gets distributed through the other channels. And the host, you put in the information like the title and the description and the summary and the image and all of that kind of thing. And then that's what gets sent with a rich site summary out to those platforms where people can actually listen to them. Cool. So I think that makes sense, Ash. I hope that makes sense. So that's hosting an RSS. Like I said, I just do it on my website because it's free and easy. Well, it's not free, but it's already included because I'm already paying for my website anyway, and I use Squarespace. But at some point in the future, if I have heaps of people downloading and listening to my podcast, I might need to look into a better host. But I don't know. I always think those things sometimes are like too far in the future to worry about right now. So if it becomes a problem, I'll change, but it's not a problem right now. And then Anchor FM can do all of it. So go and check out Joe's recommendation, which was Anchor FM for hosting, RSS, recording and editing all in one place and all for free. Is it really free? That's amazing. Cool. So next up is your title and your artwork. Again, don't overcomplicate things. I always overcomplicate things with naming, and then I always remember to keep it simple, stupid. And Newborn Mothers is my business name. Newborn Mothers is also my podcast name, and Newborn Mothers is also the title of my book. So you don't necessarily need to keep thinking of new things. I'm a very creative person. You might be as well, in which case you might be like, have 1,000 ideas and you don't even know which one to choose. So just keep it simple. Or you might not be such a creative person and you're just like, oh, I don't even know what to do, what to call it. Also, just calling your podcast like the postpartum podcast is totally fine. I don't know if there is one already called that. But yes, just keep it simple. Just give it a name and get it out there. Your artwork, you will have to look into your host and they will tell you the requirements for the different feeds. So like, I think that your graphic size for iTunes, Stitcher, etc., it might be a little bit different. So you might need to create a graphic and then have it put into different sizes for different and formats for different distribution channels. So a really easy way to do that is on Fiverr. So again, I wouldn't get too complicated with that. I wouldn't worry about it too much. Just get it out there. And you can jump on Fiverr and they will be able to provide it. There'll be people that on Fiverr who, their job is to do podcast images over and over and over again. So they'll know all of the tech specs. They'll just be able to do it automatically. Do let me know if you've got any more questions. We're nearly coming to the end. Welcome, Daniela. Welcome, Monica. So the intro and outro, my intro and outro for my podcast are terrible. I actually hate them, but I'm too lazy to re-record them. So I will at some point re-record them. But so far I have not. So for your intro and outro, again, just listen to some of your favorite podcasts and what they say. I really like short ones. Again, I get annoyed. Some podcasts seem to have like a 30-second or 1-minute intro, and I always end up flicking through because I'm like, can we just start the podcast? You don't want to listen to the same thing over and over again. Then mine is about 10 seconds long. I think that's long enough. So if it's basically your intro, you basically want it to be like your elevator pitch, like who's it for and what are they going to get out of it. And then if you want, you can choose some fancy music. There's loads of free or cheap stock music that you can buy if you want to have music. You don't have to have music. And then at the end, you want to say, please subscribe and review and maybe go to my website and that kind of thing. So you want to give them a call to action at the end. So that's your intro and outro. And then again, you don't even have to have an intro and outro. You can just start by saying, hello and welcome to the Newborn Mothers Podcast. My name's Julia and this is episode 43 and today we're interviewing such and such. And that's totally fine too. But if you want to have an intro, like a little credits music kind of thing, you can do that too. Cool. And then the last thing is reviews and subscribers. You want to get lots of reviews and subscribers, and particularly early on. So again, I didn't do this, so I'm telling you the best things to do and not necessarily what I have done. But when in the first 8 weeks of your podcast's existence, iTunes, you have the opportunity of going their new and noteworthy list. And if you get on their new and noteworthy page, that's really good because you'll get heaps more exposure. But to get on that new and noteworthy page, you have to have a certain amount of listens and downloads and reviews and that kind of thing within that first 8 weeks. So if you can go in with a bang, that's awesome. If you can launch with a big audience and, you know, share it with everyone. I've launched my podcast. That's really great. You can take advantage of that. Or if you're like me and you'd rather just get started, because my first podcasts were pretty crappy. So I kind of prefer to build up and, you know, as I get better at it, then, you know, then more people start listening to it. You can do that too. But do always ask for reviews and subscribers because that's obviously how you get people to, that's like your email list of podcasting. You know, you want to be jumping into people's phones every single week because it's basically content marketing. I mean, that's why you've got a podcast. It's just like a blog. I think that's all. Let me know if you have any other questions. I hope that's given you something to get started with. Let me know if you have other topics that you want me to discuss on these little mini live lessons, and this will be recorded so you can come back and listen to it anytime, and you can leave more questions in the comments even if you're listening to the recording as well. Okay, I think that's it. I can't see any more questions, so I'm going to head off. But that's it. Go and get started with podcasting. It really is so easy. And it's just such an awesome way to create content. For me, the best thing has really been giving me the opportunity to have a lot of conversations and reach out to people who I really respect and, you know, I really admire and that kind of thing. So I think that's one of the coolest things about podcasting. Okay, see you later. Bye.